With the next generation of consoles looming on the horizon, I think it's a great time to take a look at current-gen systems. Prices for consoles and games of that generation, especially in the used market, tend to drop around that time, so for many people it's a great time to jump into a console they haven't experienced before. At the same time, I know that other people may just want to reminisce about their trusty console before shifting attention to Gen 9, but whatever the case may be, in this video we'll take a look at the Sony PlayStation 4. We'll discuss things like hardware, games, and accessories, among other things. I think it makes sense to look at hardware first. While it's easy to group the consoles together into three categories, Fat, Slim, and Pro, there's actually more to it than that. For example, the Fat model has three versions, often referred to as A, B, and C chassis. Mine's a launch model, so it has a number or a model number of CUH-1001A, making it an A chassis, since it has a 1000 series model number. CUH 1100 series consoles feature a revised Wi-Fi chip or antenna and are considered a B chassis PS4, though I'm not sure if there's any real improvement with wireless performance. The C chassis PS4 has a model number in the 1300s and features less power consumption, less weight, and the touch buttons are gone and replaced with physical ones. These are very easy to spot because the previously glossed section is textured to match the rest of the console. They're also quieter than the A and B chassis systems. The Slim features a number of improvements. Lower power consumption, less noise, and smaller size are certainly noteworthy things about it, but I think, quite importantly, the Wi-Fi is better because it supports 5 GHz 802.11 AC, which unfortunately the Fat model doesn't. The Slim model does lose the audio optical out, which most people might not care about, but I think it's a bit of a shame. There seems to be, from what I can tell, three revisions of the Slim: 2000, 2100, and 2200 models. It seems that it's mostly efficiency improvements and production changes, so it doesn't seem to matter too much which one you get. Out of the regular PS4 models, as in non-Pro models, I would recommend the Slim model for the better Wi-Fi and quieter operation. Thankfully, in terms of functionality, the Fat and Slim models are the same, so you still get HDR, for example, unlike with the Xbox One, where the original model doesn't support HDR, yet the S does. So you really don't have to worry about performance differences there. Of course, the PS4 Pro exists as well. The optical out returns, though that probably isn't the reason most people would want one. The main thing about the Pro is that it's more powerful and has 4K support. Well, the 4K part does need a bit of explaining. Games aren't magically going to be 4K. Games that can make use of the Pro's extra power have a PS4 Pro Enhanced label on them. What actually is better depends on what the developers did. Sometimes you get higher resolutions or better performance. Occasionally you can even choose which one you want. Stay at 1080p but higher frame rates, or higher resolution and stay at 30 FPS, for example. The Pro can stream 4K video, but disappointingly there's no 4K Blu-ray support, which is kind of strange. I mean, Sony made the Blu-ray format. My Xbox One S, yes, the regular Xbox One, can play 4K Blu-ray. Seems like quite the missed opportunity, and in my opinion makes the system kinda less attractive in comparison. But hey, that's just me. If that doesn't matter to you, then that doesn't matter to you. The Pro has three different hardware revisions: CUH 7000, 7100, and 7200. They get incrementally quieter, with the 7200s being apparently noticeably quieter than the rest. Those were first introduced with the Red Dead Redemption 2 bundle at the end of 2018. At the time, you could still get the older models, like in the stores and stuff, but I'm pretty sure now, over a year and a half later, new models are probably all going to be the 7200s by now. So my recommendation would be to get some sort of Slim because of the Wi-Fi and, less noise, or a 7200 series PS4 Pro if you want some performance enhancements. If you Google PS4 Pro enhanced games, you can find lists of which games offer improvements and what those improvements are. It is worth mentioning that VR is better on the Pro model, so if that's important to you, well, need I say more? Let's talk about accessories. Something worth looking into pretty much straight away is more storage capacity. Back in 2013, I thought 500 gigabytes was going to be plenty, but it didn't take long to realize that that wasn't the case. Honestly, even 1 terabyte isn't that much, since games can take up so much space. For example, my Xbox One S has a terabyte drive and it's basically full. I always have to delete stuff. The PS4 can handle up to 8 terabytes of external and internal storage for a total of 16 terabytes. If you just got a PS4, I would recommend upgrading the internal storage before you even start using it. Changing the internal drive is really easy, there's really nothing to it. Of course, an external expansion is a good idea if you already have a filled up drive and just want to add more storage without messing about with anything. Some people also like to upgrade to solid-state drives for a performance boost, so there's plenty of options there. Controllers are straightforward, though the early launch model ones had issues. I have 2 controllers from launch that have the rubber grips disintegrate. Apparently that was fixed quite early on, so it's unlikely that you'll run into them. And if you do, you can probably tell by looking at them, and then subsequently steering clear. When the Slim model launched, there was also a change where the light can now be seen through the touch button thing. So that's a difference, I guess. Other accessories include VR, the PlayStation camera, and PlayStation Move, if you like holding glowing balls. These are more specialty items with not exactly universal use. Most people probably won't be into this, but there are people who are, of course, so I'll mention it. Of course, there's plenty of headsets too. Both wired and wireless options exist. The controller has a 3.5mm headphone jack, unlike some other devices. I feel quite strongly about most mainstream headsets, as in they're usually terrible, so I'm not going to get into that subject. All you fellow audiophiles out there, do some research, though I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that. There's other accessories I would recommend also, like a remote if you're watching any sort of video content, and perhaps even those controller chargers, you know, those dock things. PS4 controllers have, from my own experience, around maybe 4 to 6 hours battery life. Obviously it depends on the game, but you know, either way, that's not really the greatest number ever. Definitely not close to the Switch Pro controller's 40 hours or even the Joy-Con's 20. So you don't have to fumble around with cables too much, a dock is probably a good idea. Now there's something you may not consider as an accessory to the PS4, but in a way, you could consider it as one. And that's the PlayStation Vita. Because of the remote play, you can take games with you, a bit like, you know, with the Nintendo Switch. The PlayStation TV also has remote play capabilities. If you don't have those, you can also use Android and iOS devices, as well as PC and Mac through the Remote Play app. And you can even use a PS4 controller. But I think a Vita is worth mentioning because, you know, that's like an actual handheld device with proper buttons and everything, so you're not really gonna get that same experience if you're using a phone. When it comes to games, what can I say? The PS4 is this gen's best-selling system, so you're going to find most things on here. Most AAA titles are multi-platform releases, and most of the time multi-platform games run or look better on the PS4 compared to their Xbox One equivalent. My library, as in like public library, has a decent selection of games, and I've been able to try several games to see how they perform on both systems. Some games don't run at 1080p on the Xbox One, perform worse, and or just don't look as good. GTA 5 has slowdowns when driving around, Red Dead Redemption 2 is really low res, Valkyria Chronicles 4 is running at a noticeably lower resolution than 1080p as well, and some effects like the rain are a real downgrade. And NHL 19 is also kinda low res compared to the PS4. Those are just some examples anyway that come to mind. On the other hand, the Xbox One X is a consistently better performer compared to the PS4 Pro in multi-platform games, so if you're looking at the more expensive versions of the consoles, then you might want to look at the Xbox One X and see if that offers any benefit. The nice thing is that most of the popular games that most people want to play are relatively cheap, now that, you know, we're on the tail end of the console's lifecycle. Obviously, newer stuff will be full price though. Compared to how things were during the 7th generation of consoles, there seems to be less exclusives now, but of course there are some. The Last of Us, Persona 5, Uncharted 4, Gran Turismo Sport, Detroit Become Human, God of War, and Bloodborne are a few that are quite well known, just, you know, as an example there. As of this video, there's also Ghost of Tsushima, which is another exclusive that hasn't come out yet, and I think it looks great, so I'm looking forward to that one. Fans of anime games will also find a lot of games to like. Those of you who do play these kind of games probably know about Sony's change in policies, which happened somewhat recently. So while there are some anime niche game multi-platform games that have some cut content on the PS4, in terms of the system's lifecycle, that's a small chunk of games overall, plus not all are affected anyways. So there's a ton of Japanese and anime style games to be found on the PS4. I know people have strong opinions on Sony's policies and actively don't support Sony because of this, but it's up to you on, what you want to do. So I think overall that broadly covers a lot of aspects of the Sony PlayStation 4. I do want to cover every 8th gen console eventually, so stay tuned for those videos. Let me know which system you'd like to see next. Also, if you've got anything to add about the PS4, please comment as well. If you like the videos, consider supporting the channel through Patreon or the YouTube channel membership. That always certainly helps out. And you get benefits like early access to videos, behind the scenes updates and news, and things like that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.